So before we kick things off, wanted to introduce the folks that are leading the call. But first and foremost, I wanted to introduce our sponsor, Staff Health, and just a little bit about Staff Health because I have a personal experience with them. And staffing agencies and staffing partners are incredibly important. They've been around a very long time, and there's a reason for that, and that is because they do play a big part in allowing for staff and your team to be able to do things like take a vacation, and when someone is potentially about to go through burnout scenarios, they act as a relief there. And so when I was running communities, we used Staff Health for a number of reasons. One, because they were incredibly compliant. And so AccuShield is a platform that provides a screening solution so that and operators know who's coming in their building. And Staff Health was awarded most compliant agency this year. And so my personal experience with them is they're upfront, they show up, and they show up with a good attitude. And so that's unique in the industry of staffing. And so that's why we use them as I was running the Man Houses, my family company, on the senior living side. So thank you, Staff Health, for your support and for what you do. Next, and our moderator for today, Miss Jennifer Fitzpatrick. And Jennifer is one of those individuals that comes alive on stage. You're going to see this probably as well on video, but she is a dynamic speaker, and she has a incredible track record of different certifications. She is a master's in social work. She's a certified public professional CSP with a designation earned by fewer than 700 speakers worldwide. She's an author of Reimagining Customer Service in Healthcare and Cruising Through Caregiving. Her expertise has been featured in more than 500 times in major outlets. So she is the person around healthcare experiences and how to create those solid healthcare experiences for the members of your team. She's an expert in the topic today of burnout, and she has her own company, Generations Health Education, and part of what she does, again, is on the health experience side. She's taught gerontology at Johns Hopkins, and also serves on the care advisory board for Seth Rogen and Lauren Rogen's nonprofit, which is pretty awesome. So thank you, Jennifer, for leading today. You have a wealth of knowledge. You were also the keynote speaker for a staffing conference that we were a part of a couple of years ago. And you have the unique ability to connect and make complicated scenarios like healthcare and those individuals. It makes sense and be clear and simplified. And that's the piece I think that's really unique about Jennifer, is her ability to make a complex situation simple. And then Kay, our other moderator and someone that's going to give a lot of really good feedback to some of the things that Jennifer talks about. But I've known Kay for 15 years. Kay is an incredible operator, but I think one of the things that separates Kay is he is empathetic. He's an empath. I feel like every time I talk with Kay, he really is listening to me. So much so, I've got to be careful what I tell him, because he catches things, he remembers things, and he asks questions about things that I've said 5 years ago. And at the end of the day, he's great with people. He has a unique ability to connect and go deep quickly. And I have a lot of respect for the way that he treats people and how he is an advocate for those individuals that work with him or are just friends like we are. And so thank you, Kay, for your input. You are you're in the AccuShield Hall of Fame. There's only 2 people in there, and Kay is definitely one of those. And so he is a unique and incredible person. So thank you, Kay, for being on this call. So with that, I'll give it to you, Jennifer. Take it away.
So today, probably everybody is dealing with the same issue of burnout. We've got a lot of burnout going on in our communities, our facilities. And today, what we're going to work on is how do we help recognize it? When somebody's burned out, a lot of times it's not that they're coming to you and telling you that they're experiencing burnout. We're going to talk about some leadership strategies that are going to help make your engagement and retention better, where your professional caregivers feel like they are supported, and we're going to build some resilience and some strategies for you to have that empathy. And what Charles was talking about with Kay, I mean, what an great opportunity to have an operator that really modeled that empathy and compassion for staff, as well as it sounds like in your personal life too. So I'm really excited about this conversation. I think that this is going to be a lot of really good stuff. And please feel free at any point to write in any comments, any questions that you might have. If something's resonating with you that you want to talk more about, obviously we only have an hour, but we want to hear back from you too. So John, if you'll get us to the next slide. Okay, so what is burnout? Uh, Burnout is something, I think this term gets thrown around a lot. Kay, maybe you could give us an example of when you've observed burnout in the workplace in senior living.
Sure. First of all, good day to everybody, and thank you for being here. I want to share a little story, which will probably illustrate Jennifer's point about burnout. Um, it is that an excellent employee uh, always comes to work on time, is very diligent about providing care for her residents, and suddenly she gets tardy, she's coming late for shifts, uh, half an hour, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and
It sounds
the
like you're noticing a change in someone's pattern. What's on your mind about this shift?
Alexa stop. The immediate concern is for leaders to say, she's tardy, she's late, we need to write her up. Um, in digging into this specific employee's case, a very empathetic leader found out that she had been just been separated from her husband, and the husband was a substance abuser, and they had an adult son who was now spending more time with the husband. So this caregiver had serious concerns about her adult son spending time with her husband from whom she's been separated, who abuses substance. That immediate concern, a personal concern, led to a decline in performance. She was, on the home front, completely devoid of ideas. The work front is stressful enough as it is. Providing care for loved ones who cannot care for themselves is stressful enough. You put the two together and you get spontaneous combustion, in which you see disengagement, withdrawal, and a complete feeling of being overwhelmed. Does that explain it, Jennifer?
Very well, very well. And I love that you use the example of a good employee because, and I've definitely experienced that in my organization. Very frequently, we see where somebody has been doing well, everything's going great, and suddenly, or maybe gradually, this individual is just not performing like they used to. And so, as somebody who's a former psychotherapist, I really like to emphasize to all the leaders out there and the clinicians that what Kay was talking about, it's not just that they feel lousy or they're not themselves. It's that they're actually not doing their job as well. And so your residents and their families are suffering. So it's not just good practice as a leader to be empathic. It really has an impact on your bottom line. It has an impact on every single person that's in your building and how they're being treated. So if we could get to the next slide, that'd be great. So I think I'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about what I call the ugly cousins of burnout, which are compassion fatigue and countertransference. So if we could go to the next slide, John. So compassion fatigue, probably a lot of people have heard this. It's not exactly the same as burnout. And you'll see on the description here, it's a little bit different, but it's distancing from the person that you're taking care of. We see this a lot with family caregivers. You probably all see this when somebody comes into your assisted living, your nursing home, and the family they are just exhausted. And I can tell you right now that I think that's happening a little bit in my family right now. We're taking care of my husband's aunt, and there's about 5 of us that in the last 6-7 weeks, she's been from the hospital. Now she's in nursing home rehab. We're trying to figure out what the next steps are after rehab is completed. And I'm sensing a little bit of compassion fatigue within the family caregiving group. But this happens, it's a very real phenomenon that happens with professionals as well, where we have that distancing. And so, Kay, could you shed a little bit of light on maybe some examples with, burnout and compassion fatigue, or maybe where you just observed compassion fatigue with staff members?
Yeah, I would say, taking the cue from you on compassion fatigue, I've seen it lead to withdrawal. I've seen it lead to decline in job performance. Um, and the example that I used of this one stellar employee going through this with a definite decline in performance because she was not able to come to work on time is as a result of the fatigue that she was feeling. When we get to the burnout situation, I would use what Gallup calls as totally disengaged. A person who's completely disengaged, when Gallup does their employee survey, they go from totally disengaged to completely engaged. And you want employees who are either somewhat engaged or totally committed, as opposed to totally disengaged. And one way of looking at burnout is to look at the level of engagement that the employee has in their job, in their performance, and in their interaction with their peers.
And sometimes a peer can pick this up. Again, I think one of the biggest takeaways from today is all of us should be trying to look out for each other. That it's not so often when there's burnout, compassion fatigue, and countertransference, which we'll talk about in a moment, is that we're not noticing it in ourselves. We don't realize it until someone else points it out to us. This example that gets into on the slide right now, it reminds me very, very much of what happened during all the COVID panic and all the lockdowns, and when people were working so many hours, people were leaving the industry, the great resignation had already begun. But at that time, I think just seeing all the stuff on the news, that created compassion fatigue, not just for our professionals in senior living and nursing home and healthcare, but also, again, for families and caregivers. If we could get to the next slide, John. So actually, can we go back to the countertransference? We didn't get if we don't have it, it's okay. I'll just talk about it for a moment. The one before? That's okay. I'm going to just go ahead. I'm going to talk about, go one more. Awesome. Okay. So one more that I want to bring up is countertransference. And as a former psychotherapist, and anybody, go ahead and tell us if you're familiar with the term of countertransference. Transference, if you ever took a psychology course, even if you're not a psychotherapist or you don't have any background in psychology or social work or anything like that, you might remember this term, transference, being that the patient or the client's putting their stuff on you. And so one really overt example might be, I'm working with a client and I'm in the age range of the client's daughter, And she starts to sort of over-identify with me as being sort of a daughter figure. Well, countertransference is the opposite of that. It's when we as the professional, now again, the term comes from psychology, and APA has as a good definition on their website, the American Psychological Association. But keep in mind that I believe everybody in senior living, healthcare, nursing home, we all can experience a version of countertransference. And let me explain a little bit more about what I think that means. So for one, let's say that somebody at your community is really, really difficult. Maybe they're very challenging. Maybe they've got a lot of narcissistic tendencies. And this person just is pushing your buttons, and you're thinking, why? And it just reminds you of somebody in your life, maybe a neighbor or a family member. But you start treating that family member, that resident, differently because you've got that stuff going on with them. So this is another area that I just think it's so important for all of us just to be looking out for ourselves, doing an internal audit for ourselves, but also for our colleagues, for the staff that we supervise. Are they experiencing countertransference? Are they experiencing compassion fatigue? Are they experiencing burnout? And it could be more than one, it could be one, and soon we're going to be doing a quick poll about that. But let's talk about the strategies for how do we manage all of this? How do we prevent this from impacting care? So for one, with onboarding, anchoring to purpose. And so, Kay, why don't you share a little bit about how you did that with your teams? Like, how did you make sure that you would anchor to why are they there? Why is the team member there?
Yeah, Jen, sure. Happy to do that. First, I know that there are a lot of administrators and maybe some marketing people on this call. So I'm going to use a term that's very familiar to everybody across the senior living industry, which is when we talk about buildings, your community, the first thing you hear is, we must always be tour ready. Always be tour ready. You don't know when a tour is going to walk in the door. I'm going to challenge our thinking slightly to say, why should we only be tour ready always? Should we also not be employee ready always? And I think I look at a person's employment, the start of that journey, as a courtship process.
Yeah.
When you're courting, we all know from our experience that it's a nerve-tingling experience, and it's very exciting. Your heart races every time you hear a voice or receive a letter. Or nowadays, it's no letter; it's email or text. So, for an employee, our courting process starts when we make first contact with a prospective employee. How do we treat that employee? How do we value that employee? How do we let that employee know that they are very important to our purpose, that they are the reason our residents grow and thrive in our communities? So think of the recruiting process as active courting. Be in contact, stay in contact, and know that you have an environment that is employee ready. When you have a new resident that walks in our door in our communities or our facilities, we roll out the red carpet. We're very excited. We want them to have the best first day. I would ask us to think about doing the same for our employees, because many of us remember our worst first days. But you know what leaves the best impression? Our best first days. And some of the things that you can do for your best first day is to use common language. Explain the common purpose of your business. And the leader does this. It's the administrator or the executive director. It's not anybody else, because the leader has the voice of authority here. And the leader is the one that gets listened to more than anybody else. Excuse me. So think about that. Think about Setting the tone at orientation. Think about having lunch with the new employee. Think about sending a note to say, I really enjoyed your day with us. I hope you did too. I'm here to answer questions. Think about the powerful impact that this has on the employee's home, if a card goes to the employee's home, which says, hey, my boss wrote to me to say welcome and asked me if I enjoyed my first day. I want to work here.
And that's huge because I think we all know that not every health or senior living organization is doing that. That there's not that intention that a lot of new employees are able to experience. But I do think that when leaders are doing onboarding, one of the things that really is valuable is when the leaders, and not just the leader of the building or the CEO, but all leadership at any level like shares their why. Why are you motivated to be in this line of work? And so for me, it always, whenever somebody asks me that question, wherever I've worked, it's always gone back to, and I think this is true for a lot of us in this field, but it's always gone back to me like I had the most spectacular grandparents in the world. And that, I always really loved older adults. I really wanted to work with older adults. I was never afraid to visit if anybody was in the nursing home or the hospital because it was just the norm in my family. And so there was a job opening when I was 16. I got a job at a nursing home, and I mean, and for a lot of people on this program today, you might be thinking, "Wow, that's great," but there's all kinds of jobs at nursing homes now. When I was in high school, there wasn't. That was like one of the only jobs available, so I took it. But I thankfully was uh, I was really primed to take a job like that, working at the front desk, because I had this really strong relationship with grandparents in my life. And so I think when you're a little bit vulnerable with your team and you say a little bit about why are you in it? Are you in it because of a personal experience? Did something happen to you in healthcare? Did something happen to your family? Is there a reason you want to make lives better? Because I think the truth is that it's pretty obvious to everybody nowadays that especially for entry level jobs in healthcare and senior living, people can go anywhere and make a similar salary. They can work at a retail store, they can work at a restaurant. So there really has to be a why for them to pursue working with us. Any thoughts on that, Kay? Or anybody want to write into the chat on that?
Yeah, I'll wait for people to comment, but I couldn't agree more. The why is so important. And for all of us, it starts with a personal story.
Yeah, it really does. So in terms of the retention really does start from the first day. If you feel like Kay was giving the examples about like saying, really being intentional with your conversations, sending a card, making sure that people know that you're glad that they are there, and being aware that if we don't catch burnout early, burnout can be brewing from the first week if we're not intentional about preventing it and making sure, because when somebody feels valued, when somebody feels like that their contribution is going to be noticed, then they're going to be less likely to get to that point. We talked a little earlier about how a lot of times we as professionals aren't the ones that figure out that we're burned out or we're experiencing compassion fatigue or countertransference. A lot of times somebody else is pointing it out to us. I think this is really truly we have a poll coming up. So we would love to see if anybody has observed burnout, compassion fatigue, or countertransference in yourself or a colleague in the last 3 months. And John will let us know when he's tallied us up.
To your point, again, the worst orientation experience is for a new employee to sit in front of a TV and watch video after video after video. And that immediately, in and of itself, leads to burnout, for me, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's not, there's not as much of an engagement or interaction, and I think video can be part of it. It can be some of it, but if it's all of it, that's probably not the best strategy. Um, so I think the other piece that's super important is like normalizing the conversation. And I know that having the conversation about when you've experienced burnout or compassion fatigue uh, or any of these, countertransference. Would you mind going backwards, John, for a moment? Um, I think normalizing that conversation. I know, like for me, like one of the things that I've been talking to my team about right now, because I'm in the middle of a personal caregiving situation with my husband's aunt, is that if I were doing clinical work right now, if I were in a building, I would be acutely aware of, if I was doing it personally and professionally, I think it would impact my job. I think I'd be probably harder on the staff because of some of the things I've observed that haven't pleased me with what's going on with my husband's aunt. And so Shauna's bringing up a great point. Our profession has encouraged us to be intentional, separate personal, and it often leads to unaddressed issues and compassion fatigue. And Shauna, I'm curious what kind of practice setting you're in. Are you in a nursing home, assisted living? Are you an administrator? Are you a nurse? I'm just a little curious about your background if you're willing to share that, because I think we really, really can't. And more than 80% of you said that you've observed this with your teams or yourselves. Um, if we aren't okay getting a little personal, I'm not saying you tell everybody everything about your personal life, but sharing some vulnerability really builds trust with your team. Okay, would you like to elaborate or add any?
Wait for Shauna's response, but if we want to talk about retention and quality of care, then we can go there. But let's give Shauna a minute. She's a social work consultant in all levels of healthcare across the continuum. That's what she says. Um, yeah, Jen, I think if you're through with the clinical signs and stages of burnout, then I can get into why this matters from an operator's perspective.
Absolutely. Just real quick, Shauna, obviously I don't think we want to be talking to our patients about it, right? Or our residents or our clients, but definitely talking to a colleague or a peer. So I'm going to turn it over to Kay now. Next slide, please.
Yeah, no, I think he can stay there for 1 minute.
Oh, okay, sorry about that.
John, sorry. You're driving remotely and we apologize. We're both Monday morning quarterbacks here. Just again, from an operator perspective, we're in an industry where our turnover is well in excess of 50% for frontline staff. So when we want to talk about retention and why this number matters, I'm encouraging us to think of 3 C's here. One is the cost of recruitment. And we know that when we are desperate, and COVID times were great examples, we hired anybody that walked in the door, regardless of quality. But again, is that the right thing for our residents? Is that the right thing to do? The second thing I'd like us to think about is the cost of training. Every time a new employee walks in the door, when your turnover is 50%, 5 out of 10 turnover. So you got 5 new hires coming in to be trained, to be oriented. And then the third C. So the first C is cost of recruitment. The second C is cost of training. And the third C is the continuity of care. If a caregiver has started to form a relationship and is taking care of a resident really well, and then the caregiver goes away, what is the impact on the resident? They feel an acute sense of loss because they have developed a relationship with this caregiver. If this is a revolving door, then both the resident and the caregiver have no relationship. So there's no continuity of care. So let's try and remember the three C's. And that is why it's critical for us to keep our retention numbers really high. And then,
Yeah, well
go
said.
ahead, Jen, your
Well
call.
said.
Um, the other piece is how can communities support self care plans? Um, Jen said this beautifully when she said, most of your peers are natural empaths. Get a peer group going. It doesn't cost the community or the business any money to get a peer group going. We do have, for our residents' families, we have a support group that meets once a week or once a month. That is really a peer group for them to share their burdens and to hear about solutions that might work for them. Why can't we do the same for our employees? We have, most communities, most operators have employee assistance programs. They have great resources which the employees do not have to pay for, like SupportLink, which provides financial assistance, advice, provides legal advice, provides every kind of advice that you want. You feel down, you can pick up the phone and talk to somebody. All of those are available to you in your communities, and I'm hoping that everyone on this call has an EAP uh, set up in their own organizations. Otherwise, the first step and the easiest step to establish is a peer group to support.
And absolutely, it's very, very useful. I mean, anytime you're able to talk to a peer about a problem, obviously the experts, the EAP folks, they're great at their jobs, but when you can actually talk, it's the same concept like you just said about family caregiver support groups. There's another resource, a couple of other resources I just want to mention. One, I'm actually demoing this at my company right now. It's a product called Cabana, and I don't know if you heard of it, Kay, but it's got and it's being used with like in healthcare and senior living companies in terms of um, it's got like an online journal, it's got like meditation, they even have pods that they set up that are physical, but then you've got like things that organizations can invest in or recommend, like the app Calm, like things like that it's something like even throwing on or encouraging like YouTube videos of things that the Calm was the app, and then Cabana was the thing that I'm demoing that has relaxation pods, and it's more of an investment, I think, than that. But doing but if you're able to do, having like something like at stand up where you're putting on a YouTube, like a 2-minute YouTube video with some kind of meditative component. But yeah, the idea of having some kind of peer support is never going to be a bad idea. I mean, just talking and sharing real stories. Oh, that's great. Christina's saying they're assisted living executive director. You're going to start doing relaxation pods. Are you doing them on your own, Christina, or is there an organization you're using? We'll keep talking, Christina, but feel free. We'd love to know if you are doing your own pods or if you're bringing in other organizations. You purchased them. Okay. Excellent. Are you ready to move on, Kay?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome. All right. So building the culture. Yeah, I think it just goes back to the emotional honesty. And again, I think I'm so sorry for the person that I'm trying to remember the person who brought up that, in our profession, we're told to, Shauna had said, that you're not supposed to really share personal stuff. Yeah, I think you do. You don't want to treat leaders in health and senior living organizations. You don't want to be everybody's therapist. That's not what we're saying. But when you normalize emotional honesty and saying, and I'm just going to share an example. I was actually telling Kay and John Levitt before we started. I one of the things I try to do at my company, because my company now, I was in the industry forever, but my company does speaking and consulting. And whenever I get a bad review, I send it to my speakers because I have team members that speak on my for generations as well. They're part of our training team. And the reason that I do that, if I get a lousy review from somebody that fills something like this out and says they didn't like me, or I was telling Kay and John about somebody that wrote in about how I coughed because I was getting over a cold and they found it really annoying. I try to make sure to share that because I know my team gets really upset when they get a bad review of any sort. Like if one person writes something negative. Now, obviously, I know this isn't the same as being in a senior living community, but if God, I really had a rough time with that family today, or gosh, I sometimes like balancing my own parents and this job is really tough. Like I think all of us can really benefit from just sharing our failures as well as or when we've been criticized and stuff that is not the fun part of the job.
Yeah, I would say that most operators here and marketing people who are on the call shudder when they hear a mystery shop is happening. And they are very, very anxious to get the mystery shop report to see how well they have done or how poorly they have done. And more often than not, the how poorly they have done uh, brings up, oh, you don't know what my day was like. I had back-to-back tours, and then they rushed me into this. I didn't pay enough attention. I I really want to encourage us to peel back and go, this is an opportunity for me to learn from a consumer's perspective where I can be better. And that's really what it is. It is not a criticism as much as it's an improvement. It's a self improvement tool. That's how I would consider a mystery shop. And when you said that, when you talked about the review, I'm waiting for my review because I coughed a couple of times. I'm recovering from bronchitis. Let's see what happens today.
And that's why we wound up talking about it. I'm like, somebody might say something, but it's okay. You're doing the best that you can. But yeah, I think that all of us we want to just try to model that. And one of the we all know like the leaders that we respect the most are the ones where we can they're human to us, that they aren't they're imperfect, that they share their imperfections. And so we have to model that. This is to have a culture where you're making mistakes. And I think I like what Kay, you sound like a great person to have worked for. I'm wondering if anybody from the Arbor Company on here, I know Kay's recently retired from there. But the fact that you would examine a mystery shop that wasn't the best one as, hey, this is a tool, this is data, this is information. When we're able to do that, like, sure, like, hey, let's look at this. Where are the areas where we can improve? We could do it better next time. But when it's not punitive, when it's a learning tool, that's such a great point that you just made.
Thanks, Jen. I want to talk for a minute about examples of how communities have built debrief practices into their operations. And from my experience, we have communities, and I think everybody does this. They do a daily stand up, which is a debrief. They do, for care staff, they do a daily huddle, which is a great time for the leader to be actively involved in hearing what the caregivers are seeing and what they're doing in providing care for for the loved ones. I've been part of many of these daily huddles, and you will hear the appreciation from caregivers when they know that you truly care about what they do and how they do it and what the details are. If you're a resident care director or director of nursing and are not attending the daily huddles, I would encourage you to do so. It brings a whole wealth of insight into not only your residents' or patients' lives, but also your caregivers' lives. Some communities have 24-hour logs so that each shift can catch up on what's happened. That is another great debrief mechanism. But I think more importantly, from apart from all of that, The best debrief is to sit with the employee at frequent intervals and start with very simple questions. How's it going? What's worked well for you this past week? I noticed that you had some trouble with this. How can I help you? I'd always like to finish with what can I do to help you? That brings involvement, the leader's involvement into the conversation. It tells the employee that he or she is not alone in doing what they're doing, that you're sharing the burden. And
And
this, go ahead.
no, I just we're getting a very nice compliment from is it Nan Nanve about Kay being as supportive and kind, and it was a joy working for you.
Oh, Nandi, your check's in the mail.
Nanvi. We didn't plant Nanvi, but thank you so much for saying that. That's fantastic. But I love that, and I think I do want to say, because I know some leaders, they're probably listening to what Kay said and sounds great, but what if they start saying all this unrealistic stuff? I mean, we got to be within reason, right? Like, we're not going to be able to say we're sending you to Tahiti for 3 weeks because you had a rough day. It's probably not realistic, but what can I do to make today better? We all, you know what your limits are, and most staff are going to try to ask for something that they can reasonably expect you to potentially do. And, then there's potential for compromising and things like that. But, obviously, like, there could be asks that you're just not going to be able to give that person. But I think just the asking, can I help you? Is there something I can do to help you? Just the ask, it does a psychological benefit for that staff person.
Yeah, and again, we know that leadership today is leading a group of employees who are very different from when we were the workers and others were our leaders. I am a baby boomer and I'm used to a specific way of working, which is go to work in the morning, wait till you're done, and leave. My work might start at 8 o'clock and finish at 5 o'clock. Today's employee is mostly a Gen Z employee, and I have a story to share here. Um, this is an employee, again, that was very regular, punctual, and working very hard to provide care, the best care for the residents. And suddenly, she also comes in late. Not the same employee, but a different employee. Not from the first example, this is a different example. She comes in late. And an empathetic leader, in this case, it happened to be an empathetic leader who sat down and said, Joanne, I noticed that you've been late these past week. Is there something that's happening to you that's causing you to be late? That one question opened up a floodgate of information. Joanne is a single mom and she has a child that's 6 months old. She has to drive 25 miles to drop the child off with her aunt who's providing care. And then she drives 25 miles in to come to work. In the old days, as a baby boomer, my first response would be, you're tardy, we will write you up, we'll give you an opportunity to improve, otherwise you're done and gone. Today, we can think of several ways of being better at this, being more human about this, and developing a discussion around flexible scheduling. Okay, if you cannot come in at 7:15 because you have childcare issues, what can we both do together so that we accommodate you and we accommodate the needs of the business? It could be a 7:30 start for this person. I know that already baby boomers are throwing their hands up amongst us and others who are saying, if I do this for one person, I have to do it for everybody. And I'm going to challenge you to think differently about each case. Not every case is identical. But let's walk in the shoes of these caregivers who are giving their all for our residents.
It's such a good point. You don't have to do the exact same thing for every single person because every single case is different. Stella says, you nailed it, Kay. Lori says, it just the notice, what Kay said about asking, is there anything I can do for you? Just the notice helps out sometimes with making you feel heard and seen. Great points. You ready to go to the next slide, Kay?
Sure. All right. My favorite slide in this whole presentation. And this is not a poll question, but please type your comments in here. I just want you to focus on the sheet of paper and tell me what you see there, please. Tell us what you see there, please. I guess I got the drift. It starts from a black dot to a period. Only one person came very close to the truth. Everybody saw the black dot. Only one person saw a white sheet of paper with a dot in it. The white sheet of paper is all the good that we do every day for our residents and our patients. The black dot is the one thing that we didn't do to the best of our ability. And our current culture is that we focus on the black dot. Instead, why don't we celebrate the entire white sheet of paper, which is all the great things that we do? And that comes through being a great coach. And I will expand on that a little bit later on in this presentation. But let's talk about examples of celebration rituals. I know that when we think of rituals, we think of, let's take huge holidays as examples. Thanksgiving is a ritual where we give thanks. Christmas is a ritual where we praise and give thanks and worship. Likewise, for every one of our employees, there could be a special celebration. The easiest celebration is a birthday celebration. But a lot of our employees are not from the US of A. They come from diverse cultures from different parts of the world. How nice would it be to celebrate a culture day for those that come from outside of the US? If a majority of our employees come from Haiti, have a Haiti Culture Day. And I know that our employees love to dress up and bring food from their own cultures. That allows us to learn more, to share more, and really the purpose is to care more for one another. That's a great example. I talked about sending a note to the employee's house. Well, I want to go send a birthday card. Every time there's a birthday, individualize the birthday card. It's a quick note to say, Joanne, I know it's your birthday. You're going to spend it with your family. I just wanted to tell you happy birthday from all of us at XYZ, and have your department heads sign it. You know, a lot of us, lot of operators do. Let's have a pizza party. Let's have a raffle draw. All of those are great, but nothing comes close to individual recognition, individual conversation, individual attaboys.
Yeah, all of that is such good stuff. Because, and again, like the pizza parties and the raffle tickets, all of that is so fun and people like it. But when it's like what you gave about culture, I think that's huge, because I think that can be a divide between families and residents and the staff sometimes, that maybe there's a little bit of a language barrier. Like when we're celebrating it, we're inviting the residents and their families to go and see what the culture is all about. I think that even can improve the relationships with with the staff, as well as those who they serve. So what a great idea! What a great idea! I think the next slide, because I want to make sure we get to all of the strategies. So making the environment ready and prepped for emotional recovery. It's when there's deaths, when there's, I recently had an employee who had very similar to Kay's example, that she was excellent, her work was excellent, and the issue wasn't being late. The issue was missing deadlines and forgetting to update certain things on her calendar that are internal. And one of the things that was going on is she had recently returned from maternity leave, and we had a conversation with her that, you sure you want to come back that fast? Are you sure you want to do that? Like, that doesn't sound, and she had the time to take, but she was in a rush to get back for a variety of reasons. And, you know, they weren't financial, but the fact that she came back so fast, and we just said, this isn't punitive. This is, do you feel like you could use a little bit of extra time, or maybe we bring you back very, very, very part-time. Like, don't come right back in. So again, another example of being individual. But here on the slides, it talks a little bit about like the break room being like a clinical respite. And I was actually the nursing home where my husband's aunt is. I was just in that break room, and I was really excited about it. I thought it was really, really nice because it was very employee centered. Usually, the break room, they have to have some HR signs and things like that, but there was a lot that made it employee centered. The snacks, the water cooler, there was actually a personal recognition gratitude board in that room, and I thought that was great, like where people could hang up thank you notes from families or accolades from families. But I think all of that just, it never, I think we always have to think about, we got to layer it. Like with our psychology and our brains, having a bad day or a bad week isn't just about one thing that's happened most of the time. It's layered. It's like, okay, you were late to work, and then your kid got sick, and then your boss gave you a hard time. But when you've got good things integrated with that, things that are making you feel good, because we as human beings, we are like, Kate just gave this great example of the dot on the piece of paper. Most of us immediately go to the dot, just like most people are going to beat themselves up. Most people are going to start doubting themselves, and the negative self-talk takes over. So, Kay, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to say, again, always remember the white sheet of paper. It's the white, it's the good that we all do every day.
We
Let's
all
not
do.
just let's
We
let's
all
not
do.
just focus on the little thing that we can be better at. I think we should go to the final slide, which
Yeah,
is,
final slide.
yeah, supportive leadership. And Jen, you want to talk about uh,
Yeah,
leadership?
just when we are consistently, and I think just checking in, doing an occasional blind evaluation of how do you feel? Do you feel like people here care about you? Um, and just reevaluating, how's it working? How do the employees feel like everything is going, that they're being recognized and they're being valued? And this is a big, big step to preventing people from leaving for 50 cents. That's like what so many of us are up against constantly. And we think like a kind word, a card, something, is there something I can do to make your day better? Those are the things people stay for.
Yeah. And again, I want to encourage everyone to think about, you as leaders are real life coaches. Now, a coach not only yells when things go wrong, as you see in football games, but a coach also puts his or her arm around you to talk about a great job that you've done. And I want us to think about being very specific when we offer that praise. It's not enough to say, thank you for coming into work today. You did a great job. What was great about what you did today? Miss Joanne was very resistant to taking a shower. You took time, you took her in, you gave her a nice shower. She smelled beautiful. You brought her out. She had a smile on her face. Thank you for doing that. That is way more powerful than saying, thank you for coming in today. You did a great job. So let's be coaches who are accentuating the positive. Yes, there will be opportunities where we will have to talk about not rising up to expectations. But again, it can be done with empathy. It can be done in a way that makes it collaborative and becomes a problem solving exercise instead of a punitive exercise.
And I think just leaving us with If you ever, and I write about this in Reimagining Customer Service in Healthcare, is you have nothing for your residents and their families unless you've got the employees. You don't have a chance of satisfying the residents and their families. There's nothing for them if we're not doing the very best we can to have good onboarding, a good culture, and a positive work environment. So like it says here, if you want people to stay, and again, not just the caregivers, all of the staff, everybody. One of the realities of this industry is like when I was 16 and I started working, I felt lucky to get a job. 16-year-olds don't have that worry right now. There's tons of jobs. There's so many jobs. And for most of our staff, they have tons of options. Nurses have options. Social workers have options. People that want to work in the kitchen have options. And so this is not just about the soft skills of being empathic. This is a business imperative. So what questions can we answer for you? I think we're giving the slides, right, with the recording, Lori? Oh, I'll let Charles and John answer. They're asking about copies of the slides. Yes.
Oh yeah, we'll send copies of the slides out later on, probably tomorrow.
And I think there's a recording too.
Yes.
Excellent. And then we had somebody asking about the pods. I'm demoing or working with a company that's Cabana, but there's another organization. A couple of other people wrote that they're doing pods. If you'd like to share in the chat, we can say it out loud for everybody. Or if any of our panelists have any examples, but there was somebody that was going with a different organization to do pods. Anything at all that anybody would like to ask AccuShield or Kay or myself, or just general questions? Ooh, Kay, I'm going to give that to you. How do I motivate the leaders in my organization to quote unquote buy into this?
Cecile, sorry, that question was from Mel. Yeah, I would say start with, hey, I listened to this great presentation 2 days ago. Do you have 15 minutes so we can listen to some excerpts from this presentation and talk about this presentation and what you learned from it and play back some of the key pieces from this presentation? And I'm sure that your leaders would be able to see the value and hopefully take some learnings from these little excerpts and use them in your own business. I think buying in is a process that starts with us. We model the behavior that we expect. And I think that over time, and it's going to take time, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, over time, it's going to become behavior. Tiger Woods did not become the greatest golfer in history just by practicing one day. He practiced for 8 hours a day for years and years and years, and he's still getting good at it. So it's going to take a little bit of practice, and I'm sure with determination, we will get there.
We had one other question. I think the CE question was answered for your NAB credits. And Jennifer says, I think getting data such as turnover helps give people who are more analytical at such a good point, because some people come from like the emotional, the touchy-feely end, and other people are more, if you know your people and you know, okay, they're gonna look at a chart or a graph or something. That's a great point, Jennifer.
Yeah, there are several data analytics platforms available on the market. At Arbor, we used CleverSpec, and now Arbor has gone to a platform called Seniorlytics, which gives you live information on a daily basis. but that requires an investment from your company. The simplest thing I would say is, okay, I hired Julie, Joanne, Charles, and Jen today. Where are they 30 days from now?
Any last comments or questions? Charles, did you want to wrap us up? If there's not.
Yeah, I think we solved all the world's problems, to include caregiver burnout and how to motivate teams. I would say, just my experience with Kay, and it's one of a million different things you can do to lead organizations and to build leaders. Kay is really good at helping people that he speaks with feel heard. And it's not something, that's a hard one, I guess, to define from a strategic perspective and a first step this, second step this, third step this. But I know after my conversations with Kay, I feel heard. And that doesn't just stop at work. That's something that I think you implement in all of your lives, in all of your relationships, whether it's family, friends, wife, spouse, whatever it is, that you'll never go in the wrong direction if when someone leaves a conversation, they felt heard. That was a big part of I think my dad's success as well, is that he was really good at helping his employees feel heard, and then action took place after that. So that would be my sort of last remark on sort of something simple to do that I think translates positively in all aspects of your life.
Well, thank you all so much.
Yeah, thanks everybody for being on the call. We'll do more of these. Again, thanks Jennifer, thanks Kay, and thanks Staff Health for supporting us. Again, there's no better agency and staffing partner than Staff Health. So really encourage you, if you have staffing challenges, to reach out. So thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.